Welcome to Cosmic Dia, where we delve into the stories and traditions that shape our lives. I'm your host, Cara Villarreal. Today we're celebrating the incredible influence of tias in our community and our families, often vibrant, unconventional figures. These remarkable women have a unique way of nurturing our curiosity and independence, from sharing wisdoms in astrology and plant medicine to being the ones who say yes when others say no. Join us as we explore the pivotal role of tias, bridging generational gaps and enriching our lives with their blend of tradition and modernity. Let's dive in. In this enlightening episode, we journey into the world of Curanderismo, exploring how ancient healing practices are being adapted in modern times. Our guest, Iosellev, Josie Castañeda, the author of Latine Herbalism, a self-described modern-day curandera, shares her personal path from traditional Latin America healing practices integrating into contemporary life. Discover the deep connections between plant medicine, healing with the natural world, noticing the patterns, activism, and learn how these time-honored traditions offer us an approach to healing in today's fast-paced times. Tune in to discover the wisdom of Curanderismo and its relevance in addressing a time of cultural loss, activism, and systemic injustice. I am delighted to introduce Iosellev Josie Castañeda, a beacon of wisdom and cultural heritage that intertwines the ancient with the modern. Hi, welcome, Josie. I'm so excited to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having the patience to wait on me. So I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, she's here. Thank you.
Of course, I think the stars always align when we're supposed to meet. So I'm so excited to sit with you now and just, as the day goes, Mercury stations retrograde.
That's right.
And I think that's going to be just really telling of reflecting on your journey and celebrating it. So we were just chatting about being tias. And
Yeah.
So what were you sharing? Someone told you recently?
Yes, I was at this women's gathering called Spirit Weavers, and there was a woman who was like, oh my God, you're like this tia I never had. I'm so excited. I'm so, you're so knowledgeable, and I'm so happy that I get a chance to sit with you. And I was like, my tias were my favorite people. I mean, I love my parents, but tias are the ones that did everything your parents didn't want to do, the ones that would take you for your tattoo, the ones that would take you to get your ear, like all this stuff your mom would say no. Tias were like, yes. And tias were also, most of the time, the empowered women. Like, have you noticed that tias were usually the women that were like the black sheep, and like nobody really talked too much about them or told you their story, but usually they were single, or they were single moms, and they were fun, and So I was so happy when somebody called me tia, and I was like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. And I was looking at yours, and I'm like, oh, she's calling herself Cosmic Tia. That makes sense. And then we were talking, I was like, yeah, I love the tia energy. It's probably one of my favorite things, for sure.
I think that's probably what gravitated us to each other.
Yeah.
Just like magnets. I can just pick up the vibe. And you're so right. The tias are the cool alternative ones.
Oy.
And I know my tia, right, the head of our matriarch, my tia Gelda, who really brought in astrology and plant medicine and auras and just all of the healing. And so she would, teach us things, and she was much older than my mom. So she would tell my mom, oh, no, let her, and, encourage me to be more outspoken and more curious and more passionate. Yeah. And so, really celebrating that tia energy, because not everybody has access to it. That's what I learned the more that I would share. I thought we all had a witchy tia. And the more that I kind of, shared that, I learned, maybe everyone had a different background. And I think the way that my tias were Catholic, but yet still shared the ritual and the ceremony and the indigenous wisdom, you know? So, however it comes through, celebrating that tia energy.
Yeah, I love it. And now that we were talking, I was like, my tias are the ones that did everything my mom was like a no to, and so you always relied on them. You trusted them more. The secrets that you kept with them was different than with your mom, so for me, definitely was, I don't know if they were witchy. They were just different than my mom. but also because they were tias, they didn't have that responsibility, which made them freer. So I definitely vibe that. I definitely vibe with the tia energy. They have these things going around calling senora, what is it called? Senora era. We need to go tia era. We need to get one of those done.
Yes, exactly. Because I think we're such an important pillar of
Yeah.
community and storytelling and telling you things maybe your
Yeah.
parents aren't telling you.
Right.
And I just have to share, it's like a really story that I'm reminded of right now, thinking of my tia Gelda. And so whenever I was little, I always wanted like highlights. And of course, my mom was like, no, you know? And of course, we would all, this was like the 90s, so we were all bleaching our mustache. And
Right.
so all the tias were like bleaching their mustache. And my tia was like, here, come here. And she put like the littlest of bleach in like my little front hair and was like, here, highlights, you know? And of course, it did nothing to my hair, but that was so cool to me to be like, wow,
Yeah.
yeah, I can do, be a little different and express
Yeah.
myself a little bit differently. And
I
so, yeah,
love
I
that.
just love to like share those stories. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, my tias wouldn't call themselves witchy, but me and my cousins they would share
Okay.
some things and me and my cousins would look at each other like, estas brujas, like that, but of course they would never claim that title, which I don't either.
Yeah.
But just the rituals and stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
So,
We will call
beginning
them, we
there.
will call them not bohemians, but we will call them, my mother has a special word that every time she says it, I'm like, Mom, I don't know if that word's appropriate, but it nails it. But it really means bohemian. But definitely, I think both of my tias that I love are bohemian women. So yeah, so it goes along with that energy.
And that's so funny. I was with my tias, one of my tias recently, and that word came up. And even though I would use that to describe her, she was like, oh no, I don't like that style. We were looking at cups and she was like, I like this style instead. And I was like, okay. But yeah, like one of them, she would teach energy healing and
Oh,
reflexology
beautiful.
in Sedona. And so, yeah, she took an alternative path and then would come home to Texas and like bring the books and share the stories. So just, yeah,
That's
really making
beautiful.
space to share your story. Yeah, just seeing Latine Herbalism, the book announcement, I was so excited and I had to connect. And so I know everyone that I'm in community with was so excited as well, because I feel like that is the book that we all need on our shelf. We need to hear more because so much of our
Yeah.
tradition is oral tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're someone who doesn't have that access, like, let's share the resources. So I would love to begin if, you would like to share a little bit about your journey of, introduction to curanderismo and plant medicine and, learning from your ancestors.
Yes, definitely. So, when I was 7, we moved from Mexico to Miami. My father was Cuban. And so, Miami was his resting spot. And so when we moved here, every year we would go back to Mexico. And every year while my great grandparents were alive, because they were still alive when I was, I think, 12 and 13. So they were around for a while, and they lived in a very humble space. So, when you do things, it's not just orally, but it's somatically. You don't learn in Latin herbalism like this for this and this for this and this, and then put this together and it's a tincture. No, you don't learn that. You learn by cooking. You learn by weaving. You learn by embroidery. Like that's how you learn. And so my great grandmother would cook a lot, and I would just sit like this and watch on her comal, the big, and I would just sit and watch. My great grandfather also, he was always very quiet, never really spoke much, but he would always be doing something with some animal. So, a lot of the curanderismo traditions are not just oral, you just live them. Nobody writes ingredients, nobody writes directions. It's just like, it's part of living, and that's what's beautiful about Latin herbalism in general, is that it's definitely part of the way you live. It's part of the cycles of life. And so for me, I didn't realize that that's what I was living until I was maybe mid 20s or late 20s, and I had taken an Ayurveda class, and then I had taken a traditional Western medicine class, and I was like, wait a minute, we use this. I never went to the doctor. We never did. So that's kind of like when it started to click in. And then I realized, oh, wow. And so, between 27 and now that I'm going to be 47, a lot has happened. And a lot of it is like refining that. And actually, like you said, like writing it down, not just for me, but maybe for my nieces and maybe for my nephews, and, definitely within my business for my students. And I think the book is a culmination of that, and it is a reference, and it is slightly different than like a woman that glows in the dark, right? It's different than other curanderismo books out there because they all have a different reference point. But at least for me, it was that. It was more like, okay, how can I share the little bit that I know, because I know very little, with the rest of the people who may not even know as much as me, or who may want to learn something new that your family just doesn't know because it isn't part of your tradition. So yeah, so that's kind of like a little bit of how the book came through, and sort of like my way of getting to the book, but a little bit more introduction of me. Like I said, I was born in Mexico. I came to the United States when I was 7 years old. I left from Miami to New York City when I was 17, and I became a fashion designer, and I lived and worked in New York for 20 years. And then I came to Miami, and I was on my way to California, and then I decided to stay here for different reasons. And I'm still here, and it's been 10 years now. So yeah, along all of that path, I set out to be a designer and an artist. And, I worked for corporations, and the higher you go in a corporation, the less designer you are, the less creative you are. And so in order to offset that, I went into the healing arts. And eventually all those healing arts left me back at the front doorstep of my ancestry. So yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I love how, you've taken this path and you've traveled and you've had all of these experiences and it's brought you here. This perfect kind of like culmination of all of
Yeah.
these different like wisdoms and experiences to be able to share it. And what you said, I think, was so interesting about how, this study of plant medicine somatically isn't necessarily about what you might think when we like read and learn
Hmm.
this plant is for this ailment. There's more of a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? And for someone who might be tuning in and this is all new information, inviting in those listeners as well to, what does curandera mean to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So the word curanderismo means the school of healing, right? So a curandera or curandero is either the feminine or masculine of somebody who heals or somebody who supports your healing. In different places of Latin America, it means slightly different little things. But in general, we're supposed to be there to be of service and to help other people heal. And so for me, I call myself a modern day curandera because I'm not traditional. I don't fall within any of the specific categories that, we have in curanderismo as a school. And so for me, curanderismo is a relationship with not just yourself and your internal self, so you are a good curandero, but it's also a relationship with the nature around you. So, there's nothing wrong with quote unquote clinical herbalism, but that's very different. That's like, here's an ailment, here's a plan, take it. And that actually takes not just the person that you're healing outside of the equation, it takes yourself outside of the equation because you're coming from your mind, right? And one of the beautiful stories that I love from the book is when I share a little bit that when people will come to my dad for healing, he only had one plant. That was it. There was no other plant for him. It was one plant. He healed everything with one plant. And that particular relationship that you can have with a plant is what we call in curanderismo a don, a gift. And that's what I think makes it very special and very different than other types of healing out there. And so for me in general, I have a lot of relationships. My number one relationship was with Rose originally. And then it shifted a little bit with cacao. And now I'm really getting a lot of not just the properties, right, the physical properties, but the energetics of root or ruda that we say in Spanish. And so, it shifts and changes. But to me, curanderismo, aside from its meaning, it really is about a relationship, having a relationship with the plants and not forgetting that you're part of that relationship, So yeah, that's the way that I would define that.
It's so healing to just listen and even to just read your book. Like maybe I'm a bit sensitive, but I would just read one page and it would just be about, the simple act of talking and how that is level one of
Yeah.
the practice, and just listening to my tias and my mom. And yeah, I had to put the book down. And right now I can feel like I'm like, okay, make sure my mascara isn't, leaking. But yeah, it's just so healing to just hear you speak and express yourself. So can you tell me about what does it mean to you to practice curanderismo in a time of cultural loss, climate change, and systemic injustice?
I love that question. And originally I would have said, oh, I don't really think it has anything to do with it. But I have an incredible, amazing curandera friend. Her name is Yaya Erin. She runs the School of Medicine Mandala. And she's in the book. She's in the last chapter of the book. And one of the things she said to me, she goes, this book is like a rebellion. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? What? Because I'm not an activist. I'm going to be honest. I'm not an activist. But if I see something happen in front of me, I will get involved. But I'm not an activist. I'm not, and I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, it's so rebellious for you to write this book in the climate that we are in today. And I was like, wow. I felt that very deeply. She's an activist. She's definitely an activist. So words coming from her in that way were really like, I felt them in my heart. And I felt like, wow, I need to have ownership about that. So I think right now, specifically in the political climate that we are now in the United States, I think this book and buying this book and reading this book and even my publisher, I think it's a bit of a rebellious streak. I think it's saying, we're not going to be quiet, we're not going to forget, and we're going to continue. So if this book in the long term inspires somebody else to go to another place in Latin America, to learn more and to add more and to do another book, I feel like that's where the cycle, begins. Because it really is the book itself an act of activism, and I never really thought about it in that way or shape at all until my friend pointed that out to me. And also, I think in today's age, we have to be advocates of ourselves. And this is one way to advocate for our heritage and our culture. A lot of us are generation 1 or generation 2 where, because of assimilation, we were told, forget it. Between don't speak Spanish to like, don't use this and, try to fit in. It's like, we don't have to fit in. That is the old times. I think now people are coming to a point where they're understanding that there is beauty in the differences. Just like there's beauty in every different plant, right? Every different plant has a purpose. We all have a purpose. So there is a lot of beauty in our individualism, but we have to work on together as a community and as a collective. And I think the book is one little thing, and then eventually another book from somebody else, and then another book, and then you have a shelf, and you're like, wow, look at all these beautiful resources. So I would say, like, I would have never had an answer for that before until I sat with my friend, and she was like, no, this is like a rebellious thing. I was like, oh my goodness. But even with that, I definitely feel like this is like, it's a way of coming home for those of us who really didn't have a lot of this. Who our grandmother, we didn't speak the same language as our grandmother, because I've heard so many stories like, my grandmother used to make this, but she couldn't talk to me because I didn't speak Spanish and she didn't speak English. And I'm like, how, like in my mind, I couldn't understand that, but I understand it now. And I understand that this book is that bridge. And I think that that's really wonderful.
I love that. And I love taking that, the word activism. And this is a form of activism. Mm-hmm. This is a form of resistance. Mm-hmm. To take up space mm-hmm. and share our story in a time where it's not exactly safe to do that. So I think we all show up and, take action in different ways. And I love that we can use plants and the natural world as tools for rebellion. And as much as I love plants, I also invite the stars mm-hmm. and the patterns. And then the math and the numerology of astrology is just so fascinating, the patterns. And like you mentioned, embroidery. So all of these ways that we weave these resources together and redefine our mm-hmm. resources is how we continue to liberate ourselves and to continue to carry the fire further.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm so excited to just talk about this book with you. So my next question for you is, how can Latine herbalism help us reconnect with our bodies, rhythm, and the land?
Oh, I love that question. So the basis of the book is about cycles, and I think most women, men also have a cycle, but most women have a very obvious cycle, right? I think it's just about paying attention. I think once you start going out there and looking at the land around you, whether it's your backyard, whether it's, in Portland, one of the beautiful things of Portland that I love, it's like anywhere on the sidewalk, there's like medicinal plants. We don't have that in Miami. We never had that in New York. So for me, every time I go to Portland, I swoon in the street because I'm like, look, there's this, and look, there's that. And look, my friends are like, listen, you're not coming out to walk the dog anymore because everywhere we go, you want to stop. I'm like, you don't understand. This isn't growing Miami. And it's like, so it's really interesting. But if you just walk outside and pay attention, and
I'm with you 100%.
I'm
from Texas and coming to Portland. I've been here for 13 years. Best thing that's ever happened to me. I'll have to send you a picture of my garden.
I
because
would love to
it
see
wouldn't
it.
be possible in Texas. It's just so lovely.
Yeah, no, it's amazing and it's beautiful. But I think, and I know there's medicinal plants in Florida and this, but I think when you really start paying attention, the nature reveals itself, and then the cycles reveal themselves. And then if you're a bleeding woman, you just know you're part of a cycle. You're just part of a cycle, whether you like it or not. And I think a lot of it is just paying attention.
Yeah, people who bleed
Yeah,
without a doubt. It's just,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just paying attention.
Hmm.
Just paying attention. And the book, hopefully there is, I mean, I really wanted it to be a good foundation, because I always think like, this isn't the only book they're going to get. They're going to get more books, but I find that it's interesting that a lot of these herbalism books, they just assume that you know certain things. For me, I'm like, this is really a true guidebook, like beginners. Let's talk about plants. And there's a chapter about the anatomy of plants. Like, how do we have a growth cycle? It's not TikTok. You don't just throw seeds and then you see the picture and they grow. No, like there's stuff that happens in between all that. And so it was very important for me to have this like of the foundation of like, how do we start? And I think that once you get into really paying attention, you start to see the cycles. And so it's really beautiful in that way. And I think that the book will help with that because it is all about cycles for sure.
What does paying attention look like for you right now?
So right now, paying attention looks like staying out of the way, not getting in my head as you ask me questions. Just for the listeners, I know what the questions are, but I don't write things down. I just stay in the moment and just be part of the flow. And paying attention sometimes means you want to get yourself out of the way. And so, yeah, that's what it's like for me right now.
That's so beautiful. And yeah, I love sharing. Whenever I talk to people, I assume we're all equipped with the same information, but it's really nice just to remember rosemary
Hmm.
can be can do so much for you. And sometimes we forget, oh, I have rosemary in my cabinet.
Yeah.
Oh, like, you don't have, it's not, you don't have to go get something. How can we like decolonize the process and the relationship?
Yeah.
And like you said, just notice.
Hmm.
And so I'm so lucky to live in Portland and to be able to, go on a movement journey through my neighborhood and see some plants like bee balm or something that I just might have a relationship with. So what plants would you say that, you're working with right now and you might encourage other people in like Latine folks and community to heal with right now?
So right now, one of my biggest, and this one is going to be a little bit hard for some people to get maybe fresh, but my mother and I smuggled some epazote seeds like 4 years ago. And every time one plant comes out, it's like this giant, enormous bush. And one of the things that one of my teachers, Julia Graves, taught me was, what is abundant in your backyard, if you have one, or in your garden, is what you need. Like energetically, that plant is blooming because you need it. And so the epazote is, first of all, it's wild because we don't seed it anywhere. It just seeds everywhere it wants to. And what it does, it grows very, very fast. And that's not normal because it's technically from dry land. So, for a background, epazote is used for culinary reasons. It's supposed to be, quote unquote, it's supposed to reduce flatulence with beans. Like if you go to Mexico, there's a lot of women who just go outside because they have a garden in the backyard. They'll pick up like a big handful and just shove it in at the end of the cooking cycle. And that helps for like the gassiness of beans. Sometimes people use it to deworm yourself, but it is actually one of the few, if not one of the only plants that has natural peroxide. So when we think about peroxide, and it's so funny because you were talking about bleaching earlier, and so I thought that was interesting because this is the plant that I'm working on now. So like epazote is like a natural peroxide. So it actually helps to sort of it's not only antibacterial, but it also helps to sort of like clear out, and so like that's the energy that we're in right now. We don't want to get stuck with these energies of anger and disappointment and like all the stuff that we're moving through as a collective. So epazote is that one herb that even if you use it as a limpia to rub it all over your body, if you use it in a baño, and if you do use it in a baño, make sure you don't go out in the sun. But if you use it in a baño for clearing with water, if you want to burn it, and if you want to do all these things with epazote, is meant to release all of that, and it's not your typical but it's the one that we grow the most here. I'm surprised it even grows. And we're talking like it looks like a giant Christmas tree. It's amazing and it's beautiful. And so that's the herb that I'm working with right now. Like I said before, rose has been a giant ally of mine. I don't think I'll ever put that away. Cacao has opened, paths. I say cacao has opened pathways in my brain that I didn't know existed, and then rue, which it's very common, but that's something new for me. It's been a year that I've been working with her, but epazote now I've been working for about 4.5 years, and it's absolutely amazing. Some people like to say it's called wormwood or wormwood. It's more like it's variety, and it's similar and close, but it is very strong and it's tough. It's a tough plant. And I think that's sort of like why it's growing so much. Energetically, it's responding to everything that's happening. So yeah, that's the one that I'm working with right now.
I love that. And I love picking up on those little, symbolisms and those patterns and those connections, because I do it with astrology too. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's for Mars. Oh, what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about is the South Node. And,
Mm-hmm.
I totally clock that, but with the stars as well. And
Yeah.
then even the connection of the stars and the plants,
Mm-hmm.
and how there are some, thinking of rose, roses for Libra and for
Mm-hmm.
Taurus, for Venus. I love Rose, and living in Portland, it's Rose City.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many places to, go to rose gardens. And it really was a place for me to heal my heart coming
Oh,
here.
beautiful.
And then reflecting on it, I lived on a street called Hawthorne
Oh,
for like
wow.
5 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that? And now
That's
I take my
amazing.
Hawthorne tincture, and I
Yeah.
love Hawthorne berries. But just reflecting on living on that
Yeah.
street, Hawthorne, and then I was living next to a knife store, and it was just all very representative of what I was. Yeah, so it's just so cool to see those patterns
Yeah.
and to reflect on them and to create space for them and
Yeah.
to see it with what's already in your garden,
Mm-hmm.
what's already in your cabinet.
Yeah.
What colors are you noticing? What's really prominent in your diet, on your
Right.
plate? What do you notice? Your body's trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Your subconscious is moving through for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to ask, what role does storytelling, food, and rituals play in your own healing traditions?
Yeah. So definitely for curanderismo, it is the way we learn. Like I said, it used to be, there is this little seed of the idea that, oh, the women, when the haciendas, they used to sit and embroider. But even before that, before the colonizers, I took this beautiful embroidery course with this woman from Chile, incredible PhD. She talks about embroidery, and she's like, the reason we don't have books is because their stories were embroidered, they were woven. And so there is this physical somatic learning. Like if you look at Kene from the Shipibo, every little thing, that's actually somebody else. Somebody can make it and somebody else can read that in their singing. So, for us in Latin America, and I'm sure that other places in the world have this, but at least for us that I know of, all of this stuff that you're talking about is a form of learning, but it's not your typical learning. It's a learning that comes, I feel like, through the heart, right? Your rituals come from your heart. When you're doing a ritual, yes, you can do a ritual without the heart, but when you're really doing a ritual, when you really want to call something is or close something up, you're in it. That's a form of learning, cooking is a form of learning. Weaving is a form of all of that. All of that has that extra layer of intention, that we add to it. And I think that's something that makes a lot of what we offer out there so unique, and why people always say, why is Mexican food so good? It's not just that it tastes good. There's a reason why that food tastes as good as it does, and it is beyond the physical attributes of the things that are being put together. I think it's part of the alchemy of bringing spirit into the mundane, which I don't think, we don't value enough sometimes, but I think it's a very big reality for this stuff, at least for Latinos in general, how we approach life.
Without a doubt, I just hear what you're saying in my bones, and I think of my tia Gelda.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's just so healing to just hear you express yourself, that representation. So, thank you so much for sharing. I would love to, I always ask everyone for their birthday to look at their birth chart real quick. And I pulled your birth chart, so I just wanted
Oh,
to
beautiful. Well,
share
fun.
some. Yeah, I'm so excited. I like got so excited seeing it and like jumped up and down and like ran off. So I'm just gonna pull it up real quick for you. Um, Yay. So have you seen your birth chart before?
I have, and somebody asked me. There was another podcast that I did for astrology, and they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "I don't know anything about astrology. I can completely admit that I don't know anything about astrology. I see it, I don't understand it. So tell me as much as you want."
100%. It's taken me like 20 years to get a grasp, you know. No, it was like the 90s that I sat down with my tias and they
Wow,
sat me down with a book and they really encouraged me to like build that
nice.
relationship with like the sun rising in the east every day. So like this is my spiel. This is because you know we can never assume that anyone knows anything. So with everyone I always start in the same place. So I'm looking at your chart and so this is how you know we always enter setting our intentions together, inviting in the ancestors, the
Hmm,
natural world, the plants, the patterns, the elements, the directions,
beautiful.
grounding into the earth,
Hmm.
setting your own intentions, whatever those might be. And then I would, you know, share my screen with you as we look at your chart. So, what I'll share with you looking at your chart, what I always say is the sun rises in the east every day, no matter what. We can trust, surrender, the sun will rise. And so that's a great place to
Hmm.
start, looking to the east. And there's a lot of rituals every morning, you know, as the sun prepares to
Mm-hmm.
rise, we start preparing the stones and the fire to create nourishment from the day. And so, you know, the first birth chart that we have reference of is 410 BCE.
Oh wow.
And there was a whole right? And there was a whole oral tradition before that got us to that point. So, you know, this goes pretty far back. And so knowing that it's based off of welcoming, initiating the sun into, you know, your day, harnessing that. So that's where we start. And so I think, you know, if I was your Thea and the moment you were born, I would look to the east and so I would clock the constellation rising in the
Oh,
east,
beautiful.
and that is your rising sign. And then that tells us the whole sky. And so that's why we get the time and the location. Okay, so confirmed the birthday, beautiful. So for you looking at your chart, the constellation rising in the east when you were born was Libra.
Oh
So
yeah.
that makes you a Libra rising.
Okay.
And because you're a Libra rising, at this time, Pluto was in Libra. So Pluto is on your ascendant, and the North Node, which is where an eclipse happens, its
Hmm.
hunger and its development is on your ascendant. So, right there, I think that's cool and unique and different for you as a Libra rising that you have Pluto and the North Node on your ascendant. Very powerful. Pluto's transformation and
Yeah.
alchemy. And then the North Node is like this faded karmic pool.
Wow.
So that's where we start. That's who you are. That's how you move through life. And I could go on forever, but what I was so excited about looking at your chart was this. So I see that in your 10th house, which is life's work, world stage, what the world needs from you, and legacy, you have in your 10th house, you have Cancer. You have your midheaven here, which is your purpose, and you have Jupiter here, which is the teacher, abundance, interweaving connections. And I loved what you said about like pattern, like embroidery and just like weaving, because I see those things as work. Because at first I think
Mm.
work, boo, capitalism, but like
Right.
no, we're taking back the word work and like returning to the work. And
Yeah.
that's this like Jupiter. And so you have Jupiter in Cancer. It's an Egyptian teaching technique. These kind of basically, Jupiter has its dignity and is exalted. It's the most powerful placement for Jupiter in Cancer, where it was when you were born.
Oh wow.
And it comes back every 13 years. And
Oh.
June, Jupiter entered Cancer. So you are in your Jupiter return. It is
Oh, I love
highlighting your
this.
legacy, your life's work, and
Yeah.
it's for the whole year. And Jupiter in Cancer is like embodying the healing balm. It is like that
Wow, I love
matriarchal,
this.
right? Mm-hmm. And so while we're all experiencing Jupiter in Cancer, when I looked at your chart, I was like, this is literally, you know, the
Yeah.
10th house. This is your legacy. This is something that, you know, you're sharing that will outlive you. And you can look back at
Wow.
your life in these 13-year cycles.
That's
And
pretty
so that's
cool.
what we see here. Isn't it fascinating?
Yes.
And yeah, it goes on forever. So looking at your chart, I also see you have a Virgo moon, which I know everyone in my community, we love Virgo placements. So yeah, that Virgo moon in the 12th house, the hidden realm.
Mm.
One of my, I love us when we have a luminary, your sun or your moon in the 12th house. It's like the hidden realm, it's the subconscious. I think it's those of us who find solitude and self-mastery, and then people come to us in our little
Interesting.
caves, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And one of the ancient translations for this is being exiled, because of course English wasn't the first language for all
Right.
of this. And I love that word being exiled. Like it just
Yeah.
living like 2,000 miles away from my home. And I think, regardless of, you could live in
Hmm.
anywhere you were born, but yet we all have this feeling of that kind of like black sheep taking an alternative path,
Right.
going off and having this journey. And then, so speaking of that, I'm so excited for you. You're starting this 7-year journey of Uranus, and that's your 9th house, and it's higher education, spirituality, travel,
Wow.
publishing,
That's so cool. That's amazing.
law.
It's amazing.
It's
You
such a
can't
great
hide from
house,
it.
and it's like a 7-year window for you of this kind of like outward
Mm,
mentor, mentee,
cool.
traveling, talking to people with different cultures around the world. And so that started July 7th.
Get
And,
out.
I'll give you the exact dates if you're curious. But
I
yeah,
am, but that's
basically
so
it's
interesting. It's like, I know that it's supposed to be a map, but like when you read it that way, it's like, wow, it's like right on the money. Tick, 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 everything.
It is right on the money every time. That's why
Yeah.
all I do is talk to people about this, and it's wild. And even whenever, like, I can't help it, but when you shared that you moved when you were 7,
Yeah.
I couldn't help but clock, well, that's your first Saturn square.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned 1213, and I was like, oh, that's your Jupiter return.
Yeah.
And so every age I clock these transits that we experience. And so it's just kind of
Amazing.
like you do with the plants and the bleach that I mentioned,
Right.
So yeah, and I love bridging plants and astrology. And so I bet if we talked, we would just
Yes.
fill in so many keywords. And well, that's this, and that's also this.
Right.
Like one of my clients just got lobelia. It
Lobelia.
was a plant card,
Hmm.
lobelia,
Hmm.
and we were talking about it's the middle finger of protection. And then just kind of like inviting it in. I went to the market, and they were on sale for like $2 in
Oh,
the front. So
wow.
now I have a bunch of little starters. And so, yeah, once we kind of like invite in the patterns, we start to see them everywhere. So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you for doing this work and sharing such a beautiful story and spending a lovely 30 minutes with me. I can't wait to hear about what's next. So can you tell me about maybe what seeds you're planting and what's next on your journey right now? Because I know this year is going to be big for you with Jupiter in your 10th house.
I love it. I think it's amazing because for the past, I want to say past 7 or 8 years, it's just been kind of quiet. And I knew that the book was, I mean, I didn't think the book was going to be like this big giant, but I knew that it was going to shift something. Like I knew it was going to shift something. I just wasn't sure what. But when I'm listening to you, it's like the timing is just fascinating. And I love that. But definitely, yeah, you were going to say something.
I have to. You said 7 or 8 years, and I already clocked. So Uranus is entering Gemini, your 9th house, and it's going to tell this like 7-year long story. But
Mm,
for the last 7 years, it was in your 8th house, which is hidden, kind of like the 12th house. Now it's where all the magic happens, if you ask me. It's healing, but it's solitude. It's
yeah.
quiet. It's the house of death and learning what happens when our soul leaves the body. So I love that you're clocking that Uranus transit yourself.
That's
Yep.
amazing. Well, my dad passed away 7 years ago, so it's definitely part of that whole entire energetic. Like it makes a lot of sense. Wow. And yeah, it's a lot of healing and
I'm
a lot of
so with you. And
self-reflection. Hmm.
celebrating that story and how those relationships transform into
Hmm.
something different
Yeah.
that you almost couldn't possibly understand until,
Yeah.
because it almost sounds scary before you experience it yourself.
Right.
But I know what you mean. I had like an 8th house experience where 3 of my tias all
Oh,
passed within like
wow.
1 year when I became a tia. And it
Yeah.
was all of these things, but
Yeah.
so inviting in, the death charts as well, and
Yeah.
how they can be representative of how the relationship continues.
Right. And then how it shifts. Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. But But yeah, so yeah, I love hearing everything now. You have me thinking about other things. Yeah,
Right, right. That's yeah, yes, love it. Yeah.
but I'm going back to your question. So definitely one of the things that I am very much looking forward to, which I released actually today on Mercury retrograde, because I felt like it was the right timing for me, was my new course and apprenticeship. It's called El Camino. And El Camino translates to a path or the path. And so this is an 8-month course that's based on the book, but it's a lot more in depth. And it's literally getting together as a community and moving through different parts of the book, plus then some. So this is my new baby. I'm hoping that people have a beautiful response to it, because I know a lot of people really want to get into it, but they don't even know how or where to start. So this would be one of those things. So yeah, so that's my new baby. And then the other thing is, for the people in Portland, if they want to come by and drop in to see me, I'm going to be there on August 17th, maybe August 16th and 18th. I'm not sure yet, but definitely August 17th. I'm going to be at Casa Ritual. If anybody wants to come, I'll be offering a cacao ceremony. So it's going to be really beautiful and really just timely to sort of maybe close out the summer season.
I cannot wait to see you then. I know I went to your last ceremony here in Portland and it was so beautiful. I took photos and
Yeah, you did a
wow,
beautiful job with the
everything
support.
was
Thank
just
you.
glowing. Of course, it was such a pleasure to just be
Yeah,
able to, hold that space with you and to do it in such a big space that I've spent so much time in. It just really felt like coming home,
nice.
inviting in like that representation, that culture. We need more of it, especially here in Portland. Sometimes it can feel like we have to go out of our way to get it.
Yeah,
So any way that I can support, someone sharing their story that's what I want to do here. And so
beautiful.
I know too, looking at your chart, this new journey with the path of like mentorship and teaching and like,
Yeah,
learning more, I see that being the
yeah.
next journey within your chart as well. So like, it's so cool how intuitively it just
Hmm.
aligns. And that Mercury retrograde is happening in your 11th house of community,
Oh, wow. That makes
and it's
sense.
on, right? I know.
I was talking to somebody,
And
the other astrology podcast. They were like, hey, Mercury retrograde. I was like, listen, I like Mercury retrogrades. For some reason, they're usually very financially abundant for me. Nothing ever goes wrong. I'm like, I must have been born in a retrograde, because I am the opposite of what everybody says. I don't know.
I love it. And I love how we can look at the chart and kind of like celebrate taking these like
Yeah,
alternative ways to like reflect. And I think those of us who aren't scared to reflect
yeah,
enjoy a retrograde
yeah,
and love excavating
yeah.
and getting more information and clarity. So that seems like the perfect way to connect with your 11th house. And I can't help but think for the last 9 months, Mars, you had your Mars return. Mars went retrograde here. It happens every
Yeah.
2 years, but for you, the fact that it happened here happens every 7. And so you had your Mars return, and now Mars and the South Node are on your moon. And so definitely rest, retreat,
Yeah.
surrender, eat more for the next few days, for the weekend. This is a time to kind of go within,
Nice.
celebrate your 12th house for what's next, because I'm so excited for what's next. And I can't wait to continue our relationship
Yes,
and interview you again and ask you more questions about what's
I
next.
would
So
love
thank
that.
you, thank you,
Yeah, no,
thank you for
thank
spending
you.
time with me.
No, it's my pleasure, and it was beautiful to connect, and it's nice to see each other in real life. And even if it's the virtual real life, it's still really nice to connect. And I love the fact that so many so many people that are of quote unquote a younger age are so interested in coming back home to their culture and their heritage. It means a lot to me. I came from Mexico to a very Cuban space. They didn't have a lot of Mexicans. We were sort of like the only ones, my mom and I. But now it feels like, this particular heritage seems to be blossoming and growing. And, to see somebody like you in Portland doing what you do, it really is a beautiful thing for me. And as a tia, it makes me feel like, wow, that's somebody who's going to do something really big and amazing. So thank you for what you offer and the way that you show up as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel like every single person I talk to is doing something so cool.
Yeah.
And so I just want to like share that message to also like everyone listening. Like, we see you,
Yeah.
we celebrate you, And like, you don't have to burn out. You don't have to compartmentalize. Like, you can express yourself. You can take up space. You can like share your stories, because we need more of them right now. Like, that's actually what sustains us during the revolution. So healing more, talking more, coming together. So thank you for doing that with me today.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode of Cosmic Dia. As we honor the voices of our ancestors and keep their stories alive, we remember that we are the living prayer of those who came before us. If today's episode moved you, or you feel called to connect more, please check out my website, my Patreon, and social media. Thank you for being here and building community with me. I'm honored to support you on your journey. So thank you, and see you next time.